Museum is open from the beginning of April right through to the 28th of October this year, and we're closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Every other day we're open from 10:30 till 4, and we're on a Sunday we're just open in the afternoon.
Great, and you have lots of different exhibitions going on at various times.
Well, we do. We've got a lot of fixed displays, so a lot of information about Moffat and Moffat history that's there, that's here all the time. And then every year we try and do a couple of what we call special exhibitions. So this year we have the Moffat Ravine murders of 1935, or also called the Buck Ruxton murders, and we have a special exhibition about the abolition of slavery, because William Dixon, who was the leading slave abolitionist in Scotland, was born in Moffat.
Great. Well, we'll have a look at some of them now. Moffat. Could you tell us a bit why Moffat is Moffat?
Well, I think that Moffat's growth as a town is very much influenced by its position. I mean, in early days it was a farming area, a sheep area, but it's always been on the road to lots of different places. Although the roads have changed, the fact that Moffat has been a route to get north and south has been absolutely key to its development. So the railways obviously came right through Britick and into Moffat. The coaches came through from London up to Glasgow. The Covenanters came down through Moffat. Bonnie Prince Charlie's army came down through Moffat. Part of his army did. The Romans came up past Moffat. People still go up and down through Moffat. How many people do we meet in Moffat who say, "Oh, I always used to stop in Moffat to get chips on the way north or on the way south"? And what we want to do is to encourage them to stay and find out a bit of Moffat. So as Moffat grew and the spa was found in Moffat in the 1700s, Moffat grew as a spa town, and that is where the big housing came to Moffat. That's when, if you like, the money came to Moffat. Very, very popular. So lots of guys from the Enlightenment period in Edinburgh would come down to Moffat to take the waters. People were building big houses, people were then building schools and the whole infrastructure to support that. So we have lots of famous people who came through Moffat. So people will know Hugh Dowding, who was the architect of the Battle of Britain. He was born in Moffat. His father had come to Moffat to open a preparatory school, and Hugh was born there. John Loudon McAdam of Tar McAdam is buried in the old churchyard in the middle of Moffat. Robbie Burns was in the area. Some say that he wrote on a window at the Black Bull. He certainly was in Craigieburn, and one of his famous songs is called Craigieburn Wood, and that's just outside of Moffat. So upstairs here we've got lots of information about education, famous people, the Hydropathic, which was the huge hotel that was built in the late 1800s and then burnt to the ground in 1921 without a trace. But that huge 300-bed hotel was to accommodate all the people who were coming to Moffat to take the waters.
Great, thank you. Hello, Annalisa.
Hello.
Could you tell us a bit about the Ruxton murders, which is a special exhibition here?
Yes, Buck Ruxton was a Lancashire GP, very well liked, but he had a very jealous nature, and he thought that his wife was playing away, so he murdered her, and that was seen by the maid, so he murdered her too, and then proceeded to cut up their bodies in the bath. He then wrapped them up in various newspapers, which wasn't very clever, and some bits of clothing, and he drove them beyond Moffat, where he threw them all into a ravine. Now, he knew that road because he sometimes went to Edinburgh, so he was aware of that. And the body parts were then found by local people, and it was a local police sergeant who started collecting all these body parts and taking notes of them, very specific drawings. He had no experience, but he did a wonderful job. And then other people were brought in, detectives and other police detectives and police from other parts. And one of the things that made this murder so famous was that it was the start of modern forensics, because they used the maggots, the lifetime of the maggots on the body parts to ascertain the time of death.
And we have some of the original maggots here.
And these are the very maggots, very dead now, but we borrowed them from the Natural History Museum in London.
Thank you very much. So what has Merlin got to do with Moffat?
Well, I think people need to come and see the Merlin exhibition and make up their own minds. Merlin, the history around Merlin comes from a time when there were no written records. All we have are epic poems that were written sometime afterwards. So academics look at these poems and try and make their own mind up. But the theory is that Merlin, who wasn't called Merlin, he had a different name, but he was somebody who was a part of one of the large families that lived in the area called Reged, which is North Cumbria. He was involved in a large battle, traumatised, and he came up to Moffat and lived for, I think, many years in a cave up on Hart Fell. Now, a lot of academics believe that they have found evidence for that. Now, this isn't the Merlin that you see helping Arthur pull the sword from the stone. That story is based on this, but there was a very early historian called Geoffrey of Monmouth who took little bits of fact, like about somebody called Merlin, and wove them into a fancier story. This gets behind that. So I think there is, that there are many academics who would believe that there is strong evidence for Merlin being in Moffat and for possibly being buried somewhere between Moffat and Peebles around the village of Dremelzer.
Come to visit our lovely museum in Moffat. You will find lots to see and experience, and you will have a lovely day finding things that you didn't know existed.
And spend a little bit longer and have a look around the town. It's a really lovely little town. There's lots of interesting bits of history, there's lots of lovely places to go. So come and spend more than a few days. Why not spend a week in Moffat? You'll really enjoy it.